Welcome to Manifested Publishers.
Hello learners, welcome back to our lesson. Remember, the program is still Manifested Online platform, and our lesson today will be on separation of solid mixtures. But before we get into this lesson, I want to remind you on what we did in our previous lesson. In our previous lesson, we were discussing the types of mixtures, where we said there are 6 types of mixtures, and these were solid mixtures, solid liquid mixtures, solid gas mixtures, liquid mixtures, liquid gas mixtures, and gas mixtures. And again, we said that solid liquid mixtures are further classified, or they are further categorized into insoluble solid liquid mixtures and soluble solid liquid mixtures. And also the liquid mixtures, we said, they are also categorized into 2. We have the immiscible liquid mixtures, and we have miscible liquid mixtures. And again, we gave examples of all these mixtures, and the assignment was you should give examples of the various types of mixtures I told you, like solid gas, solid, liquid, gas. I hope you've done that assignment. Therefore, in this lesson, we are going to narrow down to one of the types of mixtures, and that is solid mixture. Solid mixtures. We want to see how you can be able to separate and which methods we can use to separate a mixture of a solid and another solid. I know in the primary science, this separation, we learned about separation and types of mixtures and separation. And an example is when you are talking about maize and beans and some other things like iron filings and sand, such things. I know you did those mixtures. And you said that these two mixtures, they are physically combined together, means that you can be able to separate them. And you separate them using their physical characteristics. For example, if you have maize and beans, I told you you cannot use a magnet to separate the two because they don't have that characteristic which will help you separate the maize and beans using that magnet, because use of a magnet requires substances which are magnetic. And then you also learned that separation depends on the sizes of particles. That the method to use to separate a given substance or a given mixture depends on the individual sizes. For example, sieving, that you have a liquid and a solid, a liquid and a solid, or you can have two solids. If you are having two solids like millet and beans or millet and maize, if you have millet and maize, you separate using a sieve because millet, their sizes are small and they can be able to pass through the sieve, and then the maize will be left on top. Therefore, the choice of the method to use depends on the size of the particles and the individual components or the characteristics of the individual components forming that mixture. I hope you get that and you remember that, whatever you learned in the primary school. In this separation of solid mixtures, I want us now to discuss how you can be able to separate some mixtures. And I want to start with a mixture of iron filings and sand. Do a simple experiment, well, a demonstration. And this experiment, the aim is how can you separate iron filings from sand? Well, how can you be able to separate a mixture of iron filings and sand? Iron filings and sand. You know, if you get the iron filings, the color is gray. So it's a gray solid. Iron filings have a gray, or their color is gray. Then you have sulfur. The color of sulfur is yellow. Therefore, sulfur is a yellow solid, or you can say it is a yellow powder. Therefore, if you get iron filings and sulfur, you put them together and you mix them, then you will have a mixture which will be gray-yellow. Therefore, iron filings and sulfur, this mixture will be gray-yellow. It will be a gray-yellow mixture. Then if you put this gray-yellow mixture on a piece of paper and spread, if you put a mixture of iron filings and sulfur on a piece of paper and spread it, then spread it and then hold a magnet over the mixture, then the magnet will be able to attract the gray solid only, and you will be left with the yellow solid. Therefore, we can say that you put the mixture of iron filings and sulfur together. On a piece of paper. And spread the mixture. Next, we say that hold a magnet over the mixture. Hold a magnet over the mixture. So you hold a magnet over the mixture. If this is my piece of paper, so what I mean is I put my mixture on top here, then I will be holding a magnet over that mixture. Therefore, what we expect will happen is the magnet will attract iron filings and sulfur will be left. So the result is the magnet attracts iron filing and a yellow solid is left. Remember, this yellow solid is sulfur. So the magnet attracts iron filings and a yellow solid is left on the piece of paper. This is because iron filings are magnetic and sulfur is non-magnetic. Iron filings are magnetic and sulfur is non-magnetic. So this is because Therefore, iron filings are magnetic, while sulfur is non-magnetic. What we mean by saying this magnetic is simply the ability to attract, that iron filings can be attracted by the magnet, while sulfur cannot be attracted by the magnet. Iron filings can be attracted by the magnet, while sulfur cannot be attracted by the magnet. Therefore, that is how you can, or that is the method you can use to separate the mixture of iron filings from sulfur. Sorry, I did a mistake at the beginning. It was supposed to be sulfur, not sand. Sulfur. Therefore, the method we have used to separate is use of a magnet. The method we are using to separate a mixture of iron filings and sulfur is use of magnet. And this is possible because iron filings are magnetic, while sulfur is non-magnetic. Iron filings can be attracted by the magnet, while sulfur cannot be attracted by the magnet. The application of this method, or this use of magnet, it can be applied in glass making and flour mills. To remove particles of iron. It can be applied in glass making. So in the making of glass, what we know in glass making is that glass is non-magnetic. Glass cannot be attracted by the magnet. And therefore, if there are impurities of iron inside that glass, or in the glass recycling, it should be glass recycling. In the glass recycling process, you are taking some pieces of glass and then recycling them to make a better glass, or some other form of glass. There's some iron. If there are some iron particles inside, then the magnet will be able to attract all the iron particles from that glass, and therefore this glass will be free of iron particles. Then in flour mills again, these are industries or just companies dealing with production of flour. Then there is magnet to be able now to remove the iron particles from the flour, because those are just impurities which are not necessary, or they are not needed in the flour. And therefore, those are some of the two areas you can use of a magnet method to separate the two components, that is glass from iron particles, and flour and iron particles. Therefore, I hope you understand that very well. And then maybe briefly to remind you of what we have said in this lesson. In this lesson, we are looking at separation of solid mixtures. And the solid mixtures we are discussing is iron filings and sulfur. How can you be able to separate iron filings and sulfur? I've started by telling you that iron filings is a gray solid. Just like my coat, iron filings is a gray solid. And sulfur is a yellow solid. Therefore, if you get one spatula full of iron filings and another spatula full of sulfur, you put them together. Therefore, the mixture you'll have is a gray solid or a gray yellow mixture. The mixture will be gray yellow. If you get that mixture, this mixture is now gray yellow. You get that mixture and then put it on a piece of paper. You can put it on a filter paper and then spread it over that piece of paper. And then you get a magnet, you move it over the mixture, that is mixture of iron filings and sulfur. Then you realize that the magnet is attracting iron filings, leaving behind sulfur. Therefore, a yellow solid is going to be left on the piece of paper while the magnet attracts the gray solid. And that way, you'll have separated the mixture, iron filings, and sulfur. And what has helped you to separate them, it is because iron filings are magnetic, while sulfur is not. That I've told you that this magnetic thing, it is the ability to attract. That the magnet is able to attract iron filings and not sulfur, and that is how you have been able to separate the two. And therefore, I've told you again that this method of separation is called use of a magnet, and it can be applied in glass recycling and in flour mills to remove particles of iron, which may be contaminants in those substances. Therefore, that brings us to the end of this lesson. But before that, I will leave you with this assignment. And the assignment is state the method of separation which can be used to separate a mixture of iron filings and sulfur. State the method of separation we can use to separate a mixture of iron filings and sulfur. I hope that's a simple one you can be able to answer very well. So ensure that you've answered that before we meet in the next lesson. And the next lesson we'll be discussing still separation of solid-solid mixture, but another example of a solid-solid mixture. Meet you then.